The board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Present.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Evans.
Present.
Alderman Page.
Present.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Present.
Alderman Coder.
Here.
Alderwoman Rice.
Present.
Alderman Gunther.
Here.
Alderman Muller.
Present.
Alderwoman Martin.
Present.
Alderman Stevens.
Here.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Green.
Present.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Present.
Alderwoman Peel.
Here.
Alderman Todd.
Present.
Alderwoman Davis.
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Present.
Alderman Collins Muhammad.
Here.
Alderman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderman Narayan.
Here.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Here.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Present.
President Reed.
Here.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Cone. 27 present.
A quorum being present, we are blessed today to be led in prayer by Pastor William Foster III from River of Life Church. Pastor Foster, I saw you on earlier. I didn't get a chance to say hi to you. Pastor Foster, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Pastor Foster, we are in your hands. And thank you in advance for being here today.
Thank you. Dear Lord, we thank you for your divine providence that has allowed us to gather here today for this session of the Board of Aldermen. Lord, we pray for every elected official. We pray for their staffs, their constituents in our great city. We pray that everything that's done here today will be pleasing in your sight. Continue to grant them the wisdom, the strategies, the unity that it takes, oh God, to bring effective change in our city. Bless their efforts, let peace abide, and we give you glory, we give you honor and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Foster. Before we continue, and Pastor Foster, I'm going to ask a favor of you in a second. Many of you knew Jeanette Culpepper. Ms. Culpepper has done such great things throughout our community. She's dedicated her life to reducing gun violence. She held an annual vigil for families of people who were shot and killed or just murdered in our city. And she's done so many great things and just dedicated all of her life to it, after the loss of her son. We lost her this week. I was deeply saddened by it, and I know a number of aldermen who were very close to her were also saddened by it. And it was unexpected, at least on my part, because I had no idea she had fallen ill. So, Pastor Foster, will you lead us in a moment of silence? And, if you can offer a special prayer for her family and loved ones also, we appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Father, we thank you for the great impact that Ms. Culpepper had on this city and all those who had suffered the tragic loss of gun violence. We thank you for her legacy and her memory. The scripture says that blessed are they that die in the Lord. Yea, says the Spirit, for they shall rest from their labors and their works do follow them. We thank you, O God, for the continued work even after her passing. We pray for everyone that's affected. You said that you would bless us and that you would comfort us that morning. Give her family strength in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that, Pastor. I really appreciate it. And you're welcome to join us anytime again. So thank you. And you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting also. I know it should be a fairly short meeting, but don't feel obligated. Thank you, Pastor. Let's give him a round of applause. We will dispense with line item 3, introduction round of guests. Any introduction round of guests? Alderman from the 23rd, I hope you have an honored guest for us.
I do, and of
There
course,
we go.
we even had to do a motion to reconsider my honored guest the week before. But anyway, yes, as always, my good friend Greg Meyer is my honored guest today.
All right, welcome, Greg Meyer. Alderwoman from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I have 2 honored guests today. And before I begin, I want to make sure Alderwoman Tyus knows that St. Louis Public Schools was out today for professional development. So it's nothing extra while they're here today. They just here with me. My daughters, Atala and Aisha, are my special, always my special, because they hate when I do this. They are yes. And school is out today. So they're not in trouble, they just here.
Oh, wow. All right. Alderman from the 21st.
Mr. President, we really need to have a virtual sergeant at arms because the Alderman from the 23rd keeps introducing Greg Meyer as his special guest when he's really mine.
There you go.
Here.
All right. Let's give Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I want to have as my special guest in distance and in deed those who had the idea, fulfilled the mission, and created the African American Memorial for Martin Luther King in Washington, D.C. It is celebrating its 10th anniversary this week, and most especially the Alphas. They stood tall, they made it happen, and I want to just say, you're my guest, and I honor you today. Thank you.
All right, let's give him. Alderwoman from the 1st. You're muted, Alderwoman.
I'm sorry. Mr. President, members of the board, before I introduce my special guest, I must address the Alderwoman from the 26th, who is a mother. She reminds me of my mother because she hears what she wants to hear. My mother is 86 years old. So I had no problems with her special darling guest. What I had a problem was the mother, not the Alderwoman, shared too much information. My mother was known for doing that. Oh, boy, if you did something, she would tell your whole life. So I just told the Alderwoman from the 26th and her daughter that I was going to represent her daughter to try to engage in all mothers to not share so much information. Okay. I am 65 years old and my mother still shares too much information. She's 86. So I'm just trying to get the Alderwoman from the 26th to just say her daughter was her guest and not tell the rest of the story. Okay, that's all. So she didn't hear that part, okay? Saying all of that, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And for my special guest, I wanted to be my mother-in-law, Mrs. Marnay Cooley Miller, who has been a breast cancer survivor for over 36 years. So that is a wonderful thing. They had to go through a lot of things back then when they first discovered breast cancer. They did double mastectomies. She did what she needed to do to save her life. And so over 36 years later, my fantastic mother-in-law is a survivor and thriver and has continued to live with breast cancer for over 36 years. And I want her to be my special guest.
All right, let's give her a round of applause. And tell her congratulations and keep on moving. I know my mother is a survivor also. It is so important that people get tested early. Also, it's important for men to get tested.
That's right.
They are not immune to breast cancer. I have some friends who passed away from it. So thank you, Alderwoman. And that was great, except for you're not 65. You and the clerk, I don't know what you've been drinking, but I need some of it.
Okay, well then I'll celebrate my 36th anniversary of being 29. That's okay. I can do it that way too.
All right. Alderwoman from the 14th.
Yes, I'd like to shout out to Tom Clemens. He's a heavy equipment operator in the city of St. Louis. And I don't know if any of you listened to KMOX, but he was interviewed this morning by Kevin Colleen, and his enthusiasm for his job was just kind of popped me out of bed with a good attitude. He's been a heavy equipment loader for 20 years, and his enthusiasm was just infectious this morning. And I just want to shout out to Tom Clemens for his enthusiasm. I don't know him personally, but if we have 10% of our workers with the enthusiasm he has, we're in good shape as a city.
Well, let's give a big shout out to Tom Clemens, a big round of applause. Excellent. Any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th year, we recognize to wrap us up.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We're here on October 22nd, 2021. On this day in 1961, Chubby Checker, one on the Ed Sullivan Show, introduced the world to the twist. Speaking of twist, this is also National Nut Day, and my special guest is our own favorite macadamian, the spokesman, the Alderman from the 23rd.
All right. Approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move for approval of the minutes from October 15th, 2021.
Second.
Been moved by Alderman from 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th and the 22nd. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, and C of the agenda and has been placed in the alderman's mailboxes. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment and reappointment to the Grove Community Improvement District. The appointment of Mr. Matt Bauer. I respectfully request your approval of the appointment. Sincerely, to Shora O. Jones, Mayor.
Alderman from the 17th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Grove Community Improvement District. Alderman on the 17th. Alderwoman of the 28th, would you like to handle that for the Alderwoman of the 17th?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, Alderwoman from the 17th, you recognize on the mayor's appointments to the Grove Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I do accept the member to the Grove Improvement District regarding Mayor Tashara Jones.
You like to just, Alderwoman, if you want to just say, I move to adopt the mayor's appointment to the Grove Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the mayor's appointment to the
Second.
It's been
Grove
moved,
Community District.
moved by the Alderman from the 17th, I think. Was
25th.
Second by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We've spent with line item 7. Would anyone like to take any bills or resolutions off of any of our informal calendars? Would anyone like to take anything off of any of our informal calendars? Alderwoman from the 1st.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like to take Board Bill 103 off of the informal calendar and put it on the regular perfection calendar, please.
All right, Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Place Board Bill 103 on the regular perfection calendar.
So noted.
All right, would anyone like to take any further bills off of any of our informal calendars, bills or resolutions? All right, we would dispense with line items 8 through 10. First reading of board bills.
Board Bill 118, sponsored by Alderman Todd, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, wherein the Board of Aldermen authorized the receipt of and appropriate funds awarded to the U.S. Department of Labor relating to the Youth Build Grant and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 119, sponsored by Alderman Todd, an ordinance to repeal ordinance number 61415, codified in section 15.48.010 to 15.48.030 of the revised code of the city of St. Louis, which provides a defense charge against loitering and provides for penalties for violations of ordinance number 61415. Board Bill 120, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel as bounded by Samuel Shepherd Drive, Leonard Avenue, Washington Boulevard, and Josephine Baker Boulevard in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described, in accordance with Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter, and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. That is the extent of first reading of board bills.
Reference to committee.
To the Ways and Means Committee, Board Bill 118, to Public Safety, Board Bill 119, to the Streets Committee, Board Bill 120. That is the extent of reference to committee.
Second reading.
The following board bills were reported out of Transportation and Commerce with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 86, sponsored by Alderman Cone, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing the director and the mayor and comptroller on behalf of the city of St. Louis, the owner and operator of St. Louis Lambert International Airport, to accept and execute on behalf of the city a certain airport aid agreement offered by the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the marketing and promotion of air service at the airport for a maximum obligation of $250,000. Board Bill 107, sponsored by Alderman Cone, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller of the City of St. Louis to enter into and execute on behalf of the city the third amendment to the Banking Concession Agreement, AL 278, between the city and U.S. Bank National Association, amending the Banking Concession Agreement, AL 278, as amended. Board Bill 108, sponsored by Alderman Cone, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller of the City of St. Louis, the owner and operator of St. Louis Lambert International Airport, to enter into and execute on behalf of the city the First Amendment to Lease Agreement, AL 205, between the city and Boeing Company, dated October 20th, 2008, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill 109, sponsored by Alderman Cone, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and Comptroller of the City of St. Louis, owner and operator of St. Louis Lambert International Airport, to enter into and execute on behalf of the city a luggage cart rental concession agreement, AL 022, between the city and Smart Cart Inc., containing a severability clause and containing an emergency clause. The following board bill was reported out of Neighborhood Development with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 97, sponsored by Alderwoman Howard, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated August 4th, 2021 for the 4900 through 4914 Gravois Avenue and 4266 Dolore area. That is the extent of second reading report of standing committees.
We will dispense with line item 14, perfection consent.
Board Bill 90, committee sub-sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance amending section 24 of the ordinance number 59979, codified in chapter 26.92 of the revised code of the city of St. Louis, relating to public notice of hearings by planning commission on making a change in the boundary of a zoning district map, requiring the planning commission to publish notice of such hearings as provided herein. This ordinance has an effective date. Board Bill 91, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance amending ordinance number 64195, codified section 626845050 of the revised code of the city of St. Louis, relating to the Board of Adjustment, requiring a consideration of variance to be in keeping with the city's adopted comprehensive plan. This ordinance has an effective date. Board Bill 99, sponsored by Alderman Collins Muhammad, an ordinance approving a blighting study dated June 22nd, 2021 for the West Florissant, DeSoto, and East Warney Avenue area. Board Bill 105, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated September 21st, 2021 for the 3601 through 3609 Lindell Boulevard area. Board Bill 111, sponsored by Alderman Page, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated September 21st, 2021 for the 1717 Olive Street area. Board Bill 112, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingracia, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing the City of St. Louis, Missouri to issue its taxable industrial development revenue bonds in one or more series in a total principal amount of not to exceed $37 million, authorizing and directing the taking of other actions and approval of execution of other documents, or as necessary or desirable to carry out and comply with the intent hereof. That is the extent of perfection consent calendar.
Alderman from the 10th, you recognize on the motion for the perfection consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move that we adopt the perfection consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman 6. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 92, committee sub-sponsored by Alderman Boyd and Alderman Collins Muhammad, an ordinance amending ordinance number 64687, codified in chapter 3.48 of the revised code of the City of St. Louis, relating to the Planning Commission, amending section 3.48.070, subsection D, specifying the vote required by the Board of Aldermen to override a negative recommendation of the Planning Commission for a zoning change. This ordinance has an effective date.
Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the perfection of Board Bill 92, committee substitute.
Morning, Mr. President, members of the board. I move for perfection Board Bill 92, committee substitute.
Moved by the Alderman from 22nd, entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 10th and someone else.
It don't matter.
And the 23rd. All right. So Alderman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. For those members who may not know, the chairman of HUDs and the chairman of transportation actually sits on the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is the entity that reviews all zoning, neighborhood plans for the city. They do a lot of hard work on behalf of the city, and there's a lot of good expertise on the Planning Commission. They hold hearings as it relates to zoning. They do a lot of good work. It's quite an experience. And over the years, what I've learned with the Planning Commission is things don't always go as smoothly as they should. There are oftentimes bills that get before the Board of Aldermen that haven't even gone over the Planning Commission. However, the bill would say recommended by the Planning Commission. So I decided I want to kind of tighten up how we use that process and make sure that the Planning Commission is an entity that is meaningful and is impactful for the city and that is respected. Currently, the code requires just the majority of the members present to override a negative recommendation by the Planning Commission. What I would like to suggest is that we modify our code to reflect that 2/3 of the members would override a negative recommendation by the Planning Commission. Now, it doesn't happen very often. And of course, we all know that no one knows a ward better than the alderperson. But sometimes other people offer expertise that we just don't have. And the mayor appoints, no matter who the mayor is, members of that commission. And they're working on behalf of the whole city, not just particular wards. And I want to make sure that they're valued. And that's why I'm pretty much offering this amendment. And I will give you some background on certain cities that have a certain percentage to override a recommendation of their Planning Commission. Des Moines, Iowa, for example, requires 3/4 majority vote. Pittsburgh requires 7 of 9 members. New York City requires 3/4 majority vote. Cincinnati, 2/3 majority vote. And let's see, local regional municipality, Maplewood requires 5 of 6, Kirkwood 2/3. And so it's not an anomaly. Actually, it should be a norm, for our city. And I just think it gives more credibility to the planning commission, and it honors them for all the hard work that they do on behalf of all of us. So with that, Mr. President, I will take any questions.
Thank you. Alderwoman from the 1st, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President, and members of the board. If the Alderman from the 22nd would yield.
Alderman from the 22nd will yield the question to the Alderwoman from the 1st.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 1st, please.
Thank you. So can you tell us what a negative recommendation would be? Because you know that because you sit on the committee. So how does that work?
Sure. Let's say there's a particular zoning that's being requested by whomever it may be. Sometimes it can be requested by an alderman or a petitioner. Maybe there's a developer that's trying to do a development, and the planning commission may not recommend it. They may say, no, we do not recommend this petition for zoning. And so therefore it would move over to the Board of Aldermen, basically the board bill stating that not recommended by the planning commission.
Okay, so if the alderman said, already don't we have it that you have to have 2/3 if an alderman is trying to change the zoning and the owner opposes it? I thought we already had a 2/3 requirement anyway, but okay, that's fine. Okay, what you want us to do is not disregard what the planning commission is saying. Let me just throw this out because I've thrown this and I'm not gonna vote against it, but what if you are on the other end of a mayor who just doesn't want to work with you at all? Then what happens if now you give up this? I'm hesitant to give up any automatic power at all because this is my 6th mayor. And so sometimes if the mayor is not on your side, your stuff gets lost. Like how many of us stood up when the former mayor's press secretary talked about how we weren't spending our ward capital money, and then come to find out we weren't spending it because they were sitting on it and would not get it done. And now as we investigate further, there's some money problems over there. So how are you comfortable with still having to get 20 votes, even if it's just a mayor saying, nope, I'm just not gonna do that, whether it's good or not?
Well, I am, and I'm glad you brought that up, Alderwoman, because I think it's our responsibility to appeal to our colleagues if we know intimately what the community really wants. And so I would hope that if the planning commission erred, and because that can happen, if because we have the preservation, what's that board? Preservation Review Board, I believe it is, where people want to demo buildings, and they may say no, and then they can appeal it to the planning commission, and the planning commission can overturn it if they want to. And so 2/3 of our members, 20 versus 15, could just overturn it. So that opportunity still exists. It's not like if the mayor didn't want it, it's absolute dead. We would just appeal to our colleagues to support us in what we're really trying to do on behalf of our community. And again, it doesn't happen very often, but I just think this really tightens up the code and makes the planning commission feel more valued.
Okay, so I guess I'm kind of begging the question. So it must have happened, something that made you just really feel uncomfortable that you're bringing it forth? Is that what happened?
No, actually, I tell you, Alderwoman, what frustrated me since I've been on the planning commission is when we get redevelopment plans that have already been passed by the board. And so I talked to Don Rowe, the director of planning. I was like, this is not making sense to me. It's not fair. I mean, I never want to be part of an organization where it's a rubber stamp. And when we do that to our citizens that we're asking to put, all their energy into a process, it's bad service and it's not respectful. And so I would ask them, what are some of the things that we can do in our zoning code that would make it a lot better? So would you then consider, in addition, an ordinance that's required for it before we pass before we pass developments, that we have the approval, just like we can't pass anything out of the board without the E&A that requires money? Would you be supportive of something like that to go along? Absolutely.
Okay. And who makes up the commission?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head, but of course, there's an architect, there's an engineer. I know the president of BPS is on there. The mayor gets an appointee. The president of the Board of Aldermen gets an appointee. The chair of HUDs can sit or appoint somebody. The chair of transportation can sit or appoint somebody. Man, I don't have the actual.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just all appointees. It's from the mayor, it's actually other diverse people.
Correct. And the code specifies the different qualifications for each member.
All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Alderman from the 22nd. And thank you, Mr. President. I have no further questions.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from 22nd, you recognize the close.
Mr. President, I renew my motion.
Been moved by the Alderman from 22nd, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th and 23rd that we perfect Board Bill 2092 committee substitute. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Board. Board Bill 103, sponsored by Alderwoman Tyus. And Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Boyd, and Alderwoman Evans. An ordinance adopting the 2018 International Plumbing Code with amendments repealing Ordinance 69255 and containing a penalty clause, severability clause, savings clause, and an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 1st, you recognize on the perfection of Board Bill 103.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'm sorry to have wasted your time. I discovered a little slight problem in Board Bill 103 that I need to get cleaned up. And so I need to put it back on the informal calendar because I don't want to come with, I like my stuff exactly right. So I'm sorry. Okay.
No problem.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. At the request of the sponsor, please place Board Bill 103 on the perfection informal calendar.
So noted. That is extent of board bills for perfection.
Third reading consent.
Board Bill 106.
Alderman from the 10th, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar. Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of a third reading consent calendar.
Moved by Alderman from 22nd and entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderwoman from 27th. Any discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt our third reading consent calendar. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
Thank you. Alderman Page.
Aye.
Alderwoman Negracia.
Aye.
Alderman Coder. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther.
Aye.
Alderman Balmer. Alderwoman Martin.
Aye.
Alderman Stevens.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green.
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Peel.
Aye.
Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Collins Muhammad.
Aye.
Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
Alderman Cones, aye.
Thank you. Alderwoman Clark
Thank you.
Hubbard. Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Coder.
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Ballmer. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
28 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderman from 22nd and 3rd read and finally passed the aforementioned bill. Third reading, report of engrossments and final passage.
Board Bill 106.
All other business being suspended, the president shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that this may become law. Alderman from the 19th, you recognize on the motion for our courtesy resolutions calendar.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move that we adopt our courtesy resolution calendar. Thank you.
Moved by
Second.
Alderman from the 19th, entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 14th and some others that I missed. Any discussion? Alderman from the 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President and the board. I would request that my name be added to the courtesy resolutions in front of us today, if that's okay. All 6 of them, I think.
All right,
So
Madam
thank you.
Clerk, please make note of that. Alderman from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I don't know how I missed this. I didn't know we could do discussion like this on a resolution. So listen, I definitely want to discuss that resolution for my grandfather is for his 100th birthday. He will be 100 years old.
Whoa.
On Sunday, on the 24th, Richard A. Simmons, legendary athletic coach for the Sumner High School in the 4th Ward. Shout out to Alderman Evans. So thank you for signing on to the resolution, Alderman Stevens. And yes, it's for my grandfather, Richard A. Simmons. Happy birthday, Grandpapa. We love you.
All right, happy birthday to him.
Yes.
Alderman from the-
Is it?
Alderman from the 24th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would request that we make resolution 116, 117, and 118 in bank, please.
Second.
It's been
Second.
moved by the Alderman from the 24th, seconded by the Alderman from the 19th that we make resolutions 116, 117, and 118 in bank. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Alderwoman from the first, you were,
It was too late. I was gonna also say we should do 15 and 14.
115.
So
Yeah.
it's too late now.
yeah, let's just say, well, you can make the motion now.
We already passed the other ones in bank. We passed it out. Didn't we already pass the
Make a
rest?
motion.
Some of them in bank.
Oh, how about if I do this? Being on the prevailing side, I move to reconsider.
No, you don't have to do that.
I don't have to do that.
You just do 15 and 14. You want to.
Okay, Mr. President, members of the board, I'd also move that 114 and 115 also be passed in bank.
Second.
By the Alderman from the first, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th, and the Alderman from the 14th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
Don't know that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt our courtesy resolutions calendar as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed. Motion carries. We'll dispense with line item 20, second reading of resolutions.
Resolution 65 as amended, sponsored by Alderman Todd, Alderwoman Martin, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderwoman Rice, Alderwoman Green, and Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, supporting a moratorium on new school openings in the city of St. Louis until a comprehensive citywide plan for education is developed.
Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the second reading of resolution 65 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Board of Alderwomen and Men. Revision of Resolution 65 to support a moratorium on new charter schools openings in the city of St. Louis until an evidence-based, comprehensive citywide plan for education is developed. Whereas the population of school-aged children ages 5 through 19 in the city of St. Louis has decreased by 18.6% between 2007 and 2018. And whereas the public school system in the city of St. Louis includes both traditional district schools and charter schools. And whereas in 2007 through 2008, there were 103 public schools serving 60,642 children. And in 2019 through 2020, there were 110 public schools serving 49,939 children. And whereas the local, state, and federal support for school choice programs continue to create a parallel system of schools and programs that under-resource and underfund traditional public schools, which eliminates traditional public schools as a viable choice for some families. Whereas St. Louis Public Schools has closed schools while new charter schools are opening, yet the St. Louis Public Schools continue to face the challenge of future school closures in order to best serve its current student population and preserve district resources to ensure its continued existence. And whereas vacant district and charter school buildings create negative impacts on our neighborhood and collaboration between city schools, wraparound services are needed to create strong communities, families, and students. And whereas the city of St. Louis requires a citywide plan for education to ensure the public school system provide an equitable quality education for all children in the city of St. Louis. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Aldermen and women of the city of St. Louis supports a moratorium on new charter school opening in the city of St. Louis until an evidence-based, comprehensive citywide plan for education is developed. Be it further resolved that the Board of Aldermen and women commit to engaging with education system leaders, education practitioners, community stakeholders, city and state level policymakers, and scholars in the development of such a plan to design a system of excellent schools which provides consistent education opportunities across all schools, neighborhoods, and wards. We further direct the clerk of this board to prepare a formal copy to the end that it may be presented at a time and place to those deemed appropriate by the sponsor. Introduced the 16th day of, October the 22nd, 2021. By the Honorable Jesse Todd, 18th Ward Alderman. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Board of Aldermen and women.
All right. Any discussion? Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. This resolution is extremely important with its voice. Although it has no legal power to make the action take place, it needs to be heard. The charter school initiative was forced upon the city of St. Louis and Kansas City, Missouri. This community never asked for it. This community has never had enough input on the state level to make sure that it was equitable in process and requirements on the education realm. As we all know, if we take time to look, 95% of the charter schools have test scores below St. Louis Public Schools. It is a sin. We have gone through trauma after trauma with children and families going to these schools. The schools are closed without notice. The families have to find another place for their children to attend. I think the biggest ones was Imagine Schools. That was 6 schools with over 3,000 students. It was horrendous. Ethel Hedgeman and the Thurgood Marshall School, the list goes on and on over all these years. Nobody can tell me that there is appropriate oversight of these schools. Nobody can tell me that the adequacy of those who are supposed to be administrating those schools is up to par, other than the 4 or 5 schools that we have that are operating at what we consider to be adequate. We have 2, because I'll give credit where credit is due. We have 2 in the city of St. Louis that are doing a superior job. One of them is City Garden. But the other, we've got problems. And actually, whether you support charter schools or not, every alderman's name should be on this resolution to give voice, because we have got to get this in order. We have got to get it in order. And I was president of the school board when this came up on the state level. And you can't fight it because they get in your business, and when they want to impose something, it's going to happen. So I'm really asking that if it's possible, if I could put my name on as a sponsor, but if I could have my way, all of our names should be on it. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. They're all the one from the 19th asked that she be added as a co-sponsor.
So noted.
All the one from 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President and the board. The comment that I have, I'm hesitant on this because I do know that, and as the Alderman from 19 referred to, as a city, we don't have authority in regards to the St. Louis Public Schools. And so that's an issue that I have. But the other issue that I have, as Alder people, we have discussed with Dr. Adams in regards to vacant buildings within our communities that have not been taken care of, that are falling down. And I've even to the point went to the schools in my community that have not been taken care of. And so when you have somebody that's leading the St. Louis Public Schools and they're working behind the scenes, behind the job that he has, I have a challenge with that. I do agree that St. Louis Public Schools needs a lot of help to ensure that our kids are educated. But when you have a school that they're trying to close and you're trying to work with them to repurpose the building and the superintendent doesn't want to work with you, we have some challenges. And so I know they have a new board and I know they're trying to work on things and they're working on a city plan to encourage us to make sure that we have our schools in order. But even though the charter schools are not doing what they claim that they're doing, our city schools are struggling. Our children are not being educated. And so I think the most embarrassing thing to me is when the mom has the balloon and the flowers and say, that's my baby, and they can't read the diploma because we're failing our children. So when you have all these people that's working against us, and now the charter schools are trying to bully their way in, I agree they should not be a part of what we're doing. We should be focusing on our children to make sure they're educated. But we have too many vacant buildings that are a venue for crime, and making sure that they're not secured and taken care of. And then we have schools that our kids are actually going to. And Alderwoman Evans made a comment yesterday on that education meeting. They treat us, it's a separation in the school system like it's a separation in the city. And so South St. Louis schools are immaculate. North St. Louis schools are falling apart. And when you have to constantly call the superintendent and say, we got dead trees on our property, we got trash everywhere, we got vacant buildings where windows broke out, they're not securing. And so I'm just like, I'm just really disgusted, because that's not fair to our children, and our children should get the best education possible. And my children were a part of the public schools. I was a part of public schools. And when we were going to school, the teachers were our friends. They helped us socially and educationally. And so it's not to that point. And so when you have a superintendent that's sending the wrong message, that's not helping the teachers to be able to have the caring, compassion attitude that they should have to raise our kids in the school system. So thank you. I'm just putting my 2 cents in.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman from the 21st.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will this resolution sponsor yield to questioning?
Alderman from 18th will yield the question to the
Yes,
Alderman.
I will.
Alderman from 21st, please proceed.
Hey, thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Todd, can you walk me through the planning process for a citywide plan at this time? Has that process started? What does that process look like? Who is all included? And what is that timeline?
This process plan will be done by the Board of Education. So I don't have that information. What I do have is the facts that charter schools actually violate the very principle of this country, which was founded on the government-derived power from the consent of the governed, meaning that first of all, we don't even vote for the school board charter people. So I don't know the process because it hasn't been given to me.
Absolutely. Don't you think that it is crucial and necessary to have that process before?
Alderman from the 21st.
Yes, Mr. President.
I want to make sure we're in order, so I need you to turn your video on for this part of it, unless you're having connection problems.
I am having a connection issue, Mr. President, but I can attempt to do so.
We can come back to you. Would you like us to come back to you?
Yes, sir, please.
All right, we'll come back to you. All right, thank you. Alderman from the 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was an original co-sponsor of this this resolution back in July 12th, I believe, but it's gone through a few revisions and a few amendments, and I see that I've dropped off. So I would just respectfully request that I be re-added as a co-sponsor. Thank you, Mr.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Please add the Alderman from the 12th back to this resolution.
So noted.
All right. Alderwoman of the 4th.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would also like to have my name added onto the resolution.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Add the Alderwoman from the 4th.
So noted.
Alderman from the 23rd.
Yes, I'm fine either way with this, but I will say though, that Gateway Science Academy, if that is one of the two they were talking about earlier, the numbers there have been phenomenal. It's on 3 campuses, and had that not been for that charter school going into Epiphany Parish at one place, Gardenville School, and eventually in a warehouse, It represents 3 neighborhoods, and the numbers have been off the charts at some points. Even the scores on the test scores being as high as Lindbergh School District. Some of the concept schools in other cities have gotten blue ribbon awards. So I don't know about all the different charter schools. I do believe it's also Montessori does real well, but I do know Gateway Science Academy does very well. And as far as the resolution, I'll vote for it. The resolution doesn't even, most of the resolutions we send to the governor or up to the state end up in the trash can anyway. This is, it has no teeth, it has no merit. So I'll vote for it, but it's no long, it's really no more than a strong letter. I don't know which of the schools or charter schools are failing or not, but I do know that the charter schools that, Gateway Science Academy, which I put my name on, that's one that I worked on from the very beginning, is doing very well. And the numbers have been off the charts. And some of the kids getting scholarships out of there have gone to MIT and different really prestigious schools. I mean, they have a very high, I believe their graduation rate was close to, I think it was 100%. I don't know about last year. So I'm just speaking for mine. And, I'm going to vote for this resolution. But again, it's a resolution that will be written on a fancy piece of paper or a letter sent somewhere and then be put in a trash can because it has no merit. There's no merit to any resolution. It just makes a statement. Anyway, thank you. But I did want to point out about Gateway Science Academy. I believe it's one of it's a charter. And because of that, it helped in 3 neighborhoods, up there, way up on Kings Highway up there, I'm just way up there on Kings Highway. And again, in my own neighborhood and in the Hill neighborhood. So 3 neighborhoods were helped. And the one thing that this charter school did is it stopped people from moving out, and we're seeing more young people move in. So if the idea behind these things are to keep the charter schools out of neighborhoods, where maybe we should be working to put some charter schools in neighborhoods, or to say, gee, you know what, if we block any more new charter schools from coming in, it'll force kids to go to the public schools. The problem is the people that did not feel the public schools were doing a good job for their kids, and there were no charter schools as an alternative, and Catholic schools were too high, they've moved out of the city. They'll just move to the county. And I will say that in this particular case, my personal interaction with Gateway Science Academy not only kept families in the neighborhood, but also brought more families into the neighborhood. So, I plan to vote for this, but keep in mind it's a resolution that'll end up in the trash somewhere and have no merit. We could debate it all day. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alderman. Alderman from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. First, I really want to thank the Alderwoman from the 19th Ward for her comments. And I think that she completely hit the nail on the head when she said that, although this does not have any legal authority, it is a very important voice that we are lending of support to the St. Louis Public School District. To give a little history, the superintendent and members of the school board first came before the Education and Youth Matters Committee back in the spring. They asked us to support them in a couple of different efforts. They knew that the board had taken interest and concern over the school closures last year, and came back to us and said, well, there are some things that we could use your help and your support on to try to make sure that we don't have these school closures in the future. And what they asked us to do is support them or have their back in calling for a moratorium on new schools until a citywide plan is created, and to be partners and engage with them in creating and crafting that citywide plan. They also asked us to look at our own use of TIFs and tax abatements and tax incentives. And that is beyond the purview of today's resolution, but it is another ask that they had of us. We have gotten to where we are because of math at the end of the day. Charter schools have been in St. Louis for 21 years at this point in time. And we just got our census data. And what the census showed us is that over a 20-year period, we have lost 39.74% of our youth population in this city. That is how much it is decreased by. In comparison, our total population over that time only decreased by 13.38%. So we are losing a disproportionate number of kids in our city, and young people in our city. And during that time as well, we have seen a tremendous amount of both school openings and school closings. Over that 20-year period, we have seen 53 St. Louis public schools close. And as of the news of a couple days ago with another charter school closing, we have seen 16 charter schools that have now closed during that 20-year period. The long and short of it is we can't have continual drop in school age population while also opening more schools. Our schools are cannibalizing each other, for lack of a better term. They are fighting over the same dwindling population of students. And there by and large is not a strategy or rhyme and reason at the moment for school openings. What we are asking for here is to take a pause. It's not an indefinite stop to charters opening in the city, but it is saying, we need to get everybody around the table, all the stakeholders around the table, to act in good faith, to have some difficult conversations about how many schools we need, what types of schools we need, where they need to be located, and do it in a data-informed way. What we are charged with, what the Board of Education is charged with, is really setting out a direction for education for the next generation in our city. This isn't about today. It's not about tomorrow, even the next year. It's about what is public education going to look like for our city in the long term. We had 4.5 hours of testimony yesterday. It was very impassioned at times. But I think at the end of the day, everybody's coming from the same place of wanting what's best for our kids. And our kids are being failed in this city right now. The public schools are not performing at the level they need to. Charter schools are not performing at the level they need to. And so we need to get all of the educational stakeholders around the table. One of the other things that they talked about yesterday in testimony was vacant buildings. And it is my understanding that as part of this citywide plan, SLDC is being asked to engage in that with the school district in partnership to, as a part of this process, figure out a plan for these long vacant schools that is community oriented, that has our input in it, that has our engagement in it. Because when these buildings go vacant, it's often us as older people who bear the brunt of the criticism and bear the brunt of the complaints from having those long vacant buildings. So I thank the aldermen from the 18th for bringing this forward, and for sticking through a very long and sometimes emotional meeting yesterday. And I hope that other colleagues will sign on in support of this to send, I think, a very important message about our support for public education and our willingness to work in partnership with the new elected school board and other educational stakeholders to determine the future of education in our city. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 21st, did you get your camera and everything up?
I did, Mr. President. I'm the last speaker.
You're breaking up, Alderman, and your camera still didn't, you didn't come through.
Can you see me now, sir?
Oh, there we go. I can see you now. We can see you now.
Very good. I will, I request that I be asked to go last.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman from the 1st.
Okay, Mr. President, members of the board, I'd also ask that my name be added to this resolution. I actually served on the board right when we started to do, when the state started looking at starting charter schools. I was in fact the chair of intergovernmental affairs, and the former alderman from the 14th, Steve Grugali, worked with the mayor's office, and that was Francis Slay to push this agenda. And it was a troublesome agenda at that time to me. We actually had hearings back then about if charter schools were in the best interest of our community. I want to caution people, because people only talk about charter schools, that this resolution does not say that as for moratorium on just charter schools, it says a moratorium on all schools, because we are taking resources from one place to another. When they started this whole charter school thing, it was forced on us, as the alderwoman from the 19th said. It wasn't anything that we said, oh, we have to do this. Now, the mayor's office was working it, and so was a few alder people, but that was not the intent of the entire city. In fact, the next few years, we took over the school board, and the people who were activists went out and we elected our own members. And right after that, that's when all of a sudden the school board was not competent. And that's when the appointed boards came. It wasn't because we weren't competent. It was because we actually were activists enough that we went out and elected our own members. And this happened right after I got racially gerrymandered. So I remember this really well. First, it was the gerrymandering of the districts, wards, and then here came the school board, and they took that over. And so that was a traumatic experience on all fronts. I actually happen to represent a lot of public people who taught in the public schools, and they live in my ward. What is so interesting is that I built the first new school in North St. Louis back in the 90s, Lexington School. Nobody was building schools. Once the charter schools came along, if they're not building a new building, they are taking different buildings and they're putting all that money into a different building, while we have these schools buildings sitting right here, and they're choosing certain places to be. So let me say I'm blessed. I'm blessed in that I have too many grade schools. I have 4 of them. I have Lexington that we built and my neighborhood fought for. We have City Academy, that's a private school. Then we have 2 charter schools, and another one, they have an annex. So there's no place you can go in my neighborhoods that you don't, if you have a grade school, if you have grade school children, that you can't send your children because they're all around. But it's unfair. It is unfair for me to have 4, maybe 5, and other neighborhoods not have any school. That is not right for that to happen. That is wrong. All children should, I remember when we started integrating, people would talk all about, we gotta have these neighborhood schools. And there was another agenda behind that, but they fought, we don't want busing, we gotta have neighborhood schools. But now you think it's all right. And I know why it's all right, because white people are comfortable coming to where I live. They're very comfortable. It's, we got big houses off of private streets. And so they're comfortable. So every little school we have, they want to come in there. Okay. But they're uncomfortable in other neighborhoods. But that's not fair to the other children in other neighborhoods. I don't need another school in my area. Okay. And it's not because I don't love education. I do. It's just, they need another school in the 22nd ward or the 4th ward or the 27th. And it's not fair for the kids who live up in Northwest St. Louis, and I'm talking about in the 27th and in the 2nd, that they don't have a high school. That when you talk about getting to a high school, those children automatically have to get on a bus and get bused someplace. the love of my life is all my life walking to school. I lived 1 block from school almost all of my life. I love school. I love it. I loved my teachers. Every year I fell in love with my 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. It was wonderful to go to school. In the fall right now, if it wasn't raining, the leaves were there. We walked through. That was all part of the fun of going to school. Our children don't get to do that anymore. Now they're bussed all out of their neighborhoods. They're up at 5 and 4 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock. I have gone out of my way to try to make sure that if there are any vacant buildings where our children catch the bus, that's the first place I've been working with the building division. Please, let's not have any vacant buildings so these children can catch the bus in safety. Let's put up really bright lights. But that's sad that our children, that takes a lot of time for them to get on school buses and go someplace else out of their neighborhood. And so when we talk about having a plan, the plan is to look at holistically, is that right for the 1st ward to have 4 grade schools and others not to have any? Is it right to expect the people who live in Northwest St. Louis to have to be bused to the nearest school is Sumner, which they are talking about closing? If you close Sumner, then you're going to have to go to Vashon, which is near the central quarter, and all the people who live north would not have any school to go to. Now, to you or some other people might say, well, that's what happens because your neighborhoods lost all these people. There was a whole nother agenda why our neighborhoods lost all these people. And so it wasn't because our people didn't just want to live in neighborhoods. It was services withdrawn. It was unfair. Let's talk about what was the real 20th ward. We didn't lose any population. We were burning it, but somebody tore our wards up, tore my ward up anyway. I keep bringing it up to show you that there's another agenda. And the agenda is not in the best interest of the city of St. Louis, okay? That was not an agenda. So even if you're successful and you're Black, you tear that up anyway, okay? If you're not successful, you tear that up. We've had 20 years of white mayors, so I'm gonna lay it on the line. They did not care about certain parts of the city. They didn't put the proper backup into the city. They didn't do the proper things, even having the proper trash trucks or equalization of who drove the trash trucks. All this stuff wears on people. And of course, people go to look and seek to live somewhere where they can get the average experience of being an American citizen living in the United States of America. They want their trash picked up. They want to live in safe places. They want schools. They want public schools. They want good public schools. So it is hurtful to me that people think that it's all right that certain parts of the city shouldn't have a school, and that's because the people over there deserve that because they have done something. No, they haven't. They haven't done anything except for they've had bad city government. And when you go back and look at who's done this stuff, it's not the people, it's the bad city government. And so now what you do then after the government has been so poorly run, then you come back and you punish the people. And I'm going to give the school, because one of the things when I wrote that resolution back about Sumner and other schools, one of the things I sent back to the school board was I did think that we should have a moratorium on schools. But what I also sent back to the school board, which I haven't heard, because they said, well, you guys use TIF and tax abatement. Okay, and so we have to close these schools. And I said, well, I agree with you. So let's close them everywhere where they've been using TIF and tax abatement. That would not have been the North St. Louis schools because we're not the people that abused it. I can tell you the wards that abused it, it was not North St. Louis schools. So I said to them, that's like giving somebody a speeding ticket who was driving 30 miles an hour, but the people driving 90 miles, you don't give them a speeding ticket. So if there's going to be a causal effect, you would need to close Adams School in the 17th because most certainly they abused it. We need to close the 6th Ward schools, the 28th Ward schools, all the schools where that's real easy. Let's look where the tax abatement and TIF is and let's close those schools and put those children on the bus. But then they said, oh no, we can't do that. So then it's not a causal effect because if it is, that's how you do it. So there's something else going on, okay? There's something else going on. Do you all understand that for the years that we had appointed school board, the people in North St. Louis had no member, not one member was somebody who lived in North St. Louis. Nobody appointed anybody in North St. Louis. So we were without representation for all those years that we were under the appointed board. The other thing that just really pains me is that the people out in Jefferson City who forced this down our throat? They want the city of St. Louis, the surrounding area, Kansas City. They just did Normandy. I wonder what all these things have in common. Oh, majority Black populations. But this is what happened. When our state senator, who was really smart, said, well, okay, you think charter schools are so great. Let's put them all over the state of Missouri. They said, oh, no, we will not. We're not going to do that. That's not a good idea. How is it a good idea for the city of St. Louis, Black or white, the city of Kansas City, Black or white, Normandy, but is not good for the rest of the state? That is a representation that is gone wrong, okay? You're telling us what's good for us. These are the same people that told us our policemen shouldn't have to live in the city after our mayor and public safety, former public safety and former mayor went down there and beat it after we voted for our police officers to stay in the city at the Board of Aldermen. Then the governor and those people down in Jeff City said, well, they don't. Although they did put a sunshine clause on it because it was just that the governor was running for office. So he knew that that wasn't right. But the same governor tells us he can't tell those people down in southern Missouri to wear masks, but he can tell us all about what is in the best interest of our community. I think this, although resolutions do not have legal power, they do speak to something. And what this speaks to is, and many people as possible will put their names on it, we should send it to the governor. We should send it to those people who are in charge of doing charter schools. They should know. They should tell us, we already have a plan or there's a plan in effect, so show it to us. If it's not, why would we continue to expand schools? Because there's another school, there's a couple more schools in my ward where actually the charter school people are looking at, because of course I need 6th grade schools. Although my population is old, no, we don't need any more. So don't look at those schools, and I want them to be something to happen, but don't look at those schools at the expense of the rest of the community. That is not right. I want everybody to have at least 1 or 2 little schools in their neighborhood or close where they can walk to school. And when they grow up, they can remember walking through the leaves and the swish, swish, swish of the leaves. You know, they can remember falling in love with their 1st grade teacher or their 6th grade teacher, 5th grade teacher. They can remember the wonderful educations, the science projects that you did, you know, getting the styrofoam and making the solar system, all those stuff, that still sticks with me. It made me a Trekkie fan. I wanted to go and be part of Star Trek because of my science classes and because of the wonderful teachers I had. And so, no, we don't have a plan right now, but why would we expand 1 more school without a plan? That's the real thing. Why would we do anything without a plan? Why have we done this? Now, the problem we had early on, a lot of people at the schools, public schools, were opposed to charter schools. So they thought it was a good idea to prohibit the charter schools from going into our buildings. That was a bad idea, because when the charter school gets our money and then they go fix up another school, another building, when that building, when the charter schools goes out of service and it closes down, we have put millions of dollars into a building that was public school money that we don't have any say-so in, and we don't have anything, we can't get it back. But if we are going to have any more charter schools, they most certainly should have to first go to the areas that most need schools. Don't just let them go any place they want to. Where is an area that needs schools? Then and especially the high school, Northwest up in Northwest St. Louis ought to be open back. The Alderwoman from the 27th should not have to be fighting to have a high school there. And the reason because is, do you know how far it is those children have to go? That's not right. So when you want to open up a charter school, you should have a plan, and you should be able to look and see where there are deficiencies, because you shouldn't be able to just usurp and suck up all the money. And then if you mess up, go, oh, well, and now I fixed up a building. Okay, so now you should have to go where there's a need, and then you should have to fix up the buildings that we already have. Then we wouldn't be running around talking about what are we going to do with these buildings, because we would already have them. We would have them fixed up. And when those charter schools go out of business, which most of them will, we at least would have put our money back into our buildings. Right now, we're taking our money and giving to a system that does not even have to report to the same system, which to me at some point, maybe we need to get together with Kansas City and Normandy and look at a giant lawsuit. I mean, we have not done that. Maybe we need to sue the state, because I think that's kind of discriminatory that you say, this is what's good for St. Louis City, and this is what's good for Kansas City, and this is what's good for Normandy. But down in the rural areas, that's not good for us, and you guys need to stay out our business. I agree to stay out rural communities' business if they agree to stay out our business. I bet you right now, if we went back up to Jefferson City with our people who represent us, mostly we wouldn't have charter schools, or more certainly we would have some rules that address the charter schools and to make it so that it would be more proactive in working with the board that we already elected. So I have no problems in a moratorium. I know we can't stop. If somebody wants to open a new private school, they can. I know we can't stop. We can stop the public schools because we have an elected board who has enough sense to say we don't need to build a new one right now. But just speaking to the fact that we understand it's a problem, and you, the state of Missouri, and the people who represent outstate Missouri, you're exacerbating the problem. You're not fixing anything. You don't show us these wonderful educational opportunities where our children are just soaring. There's a few exceptions, as the Alderwoman said, but mostly they last for a few years. They suck up all the resources and they close down. And just think if those resources had been put into the public schools that we still have, what a wonderful thing that was. So no, we do not, this is not a legal document, but it is a statement that we care about our community, and that it's holistic, and that it's not just, oh, well, I'm fine because I have 4 grade schools. No, I'm not fine because I'm troubled about all my surrounding communities that don't have any, and I'm troubled about children who have to get on that bus and travel far ways, or people who feel like they're not getting the same education. I think I heard the other day when they were talking about education, one lady talking about that they don't have the same language or foreign language skills taught at one school in North St. Louis. So she had to put her kids on another school and go someplace else. All of that is wrong. At 2021, I hope we have gotten past this whole thing of integration of our schools and busing. I was here when they started it. I watched the shameful things that happen on TV with people screaming and hollering about not wanting their children to go to school with Black children. I hope we have, in years and years and years, 40, 50 years later, we've gotten past that, and that we want all children to have a great education and great opportunities. And I want to say, I agree with all those people that were screaming for neighborhood schools back then, but not for the right reason. I always wanted to keep neighborhood schools, and most Black parents did. They just did not want their kids going to schools that didn't have the proper resources, and also didn't even have the proper books. I still remember the teachers being transferred to Sodan, and the chemical chart there didn't have all the chemicals on the chart. There was some missing, and the white teachers being so surprised that this was there, because you can tend to stay in your own little cocoon. And if you have everything you need, that you don't know how many things are missing from other people, and that you've usurped all of that, those resources, and that other people haven't gotten their fair share. Every child deserves an education, and no child should be left behind because we don't have a good public education. I am a product of a public education. I am proud of that. It wasn't in St. Louis, but I am. I often challenge my husband, who went to Catholic schools and private schools all the time, to let him know that us public school kids are just as smart as those private school kids. And we're just as smart because we had the opportunity to go to a great public schools. And this is what we in the city of St. Louis should offer all of our children. And if that means getting a plan together before we build one more school, that's what we should do. And then we should also be able to look at that plan and look at if we have too much and somebody else doesn't have enough. I truly would support closing down one of my charter schools and moving it to the 27th ward, where they are making it a high school, because everybody's doing all these grade schools. Let's make a high school where the people people can go. And then let's put the money into maybe putting that high school, maybe it start out as a charter school, but then we make it back a public school. And we make sure that every segment of the city of St. Louis, the children have an opportunity to go to their neighborhood schools and get a good education. So again, I want to thank the sponsor, the primary sponsor, those who are listed. And again, please add my name, because even though this doesn't have law, it is so important. And I want to thank the Alderwoman from the 19th, because she served on the school board. She knows the pains of trying to do the right thing and people just basically yanking what you're doing out from under you and discounting the hard work. So thank you, Alderman from the 18th, and thank you the other co-sponsors. And again, thank you so much. And please consider adding your name to this. And then I would ask the sponsor to send it to the governor, to send it to the members of the legislature, to let them know that there are members of the Board of Aldermen in the city of St. Louis that care about our children and our school system. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Madam Clerk, please make note that the Alderwoman from the 1st would like her name added.
So noted.
Alderwoman from the 6th.
I apologize, Mr. President. I lowered my hand.
Okay. Alderman from the 24th.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I've actually received quite a few emails, phone calls, and texts from my constituency regarding this, and every one of them was in favor of it. Now I'm hearing from more of my colleagues, and we heard some in committee, that we're seeing more and more disparate outcomes, whether it's the buildings, whether it's the educational outcomes, or whether it's the treatment of teachers and staff in these schools, which I think is a really important thing. If the teachers aren't getting treated well, it's hard for them to educate the children well. All of this goes towards the idea that a citywide plan would be beneficial, at least to take stock of where we're at, what we have, and look at what we need to change in order to ensure the best educational outcomes for our children. Locally, I know that there's frustration here because sometimes we feel our hands are tied by the state, but as I've said on the floor before, I think that one of the things that we can do is every time that we're looking at TIFs, incentives, different abatements, we can remember that every dollar that we hand away to a developer that we don't need to hand to a developer, we're taking a dollar from the kids in our public schools. So I would request that I be added as a sponsor to this, and I would also request a roll call vote. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. The Alderman from the 24th requested to be added as a co-sponsor.
So noted. Thank you.
All right. Alderwoman of the 17th.
Thank you, President Reed. I would like to be added as a co-sponsor to this resolution. I believe that, we need to have a comprehensive plan for many different issues here in the city. And before we move on, I think that when we do things here and there, we are not providing the best and most effective type of, most best and effective way in which we can run the city. I think the city needs to have comprehensive plans so that we can strengthen the city. So again, I would like to be added to this resolution as a co-sponsor.
All right, Madam Clerk, please make note of that to Alderwoman from the 17th. Alderwoman from the 14th.
Yes, I agree with this resolution. I think it's long overdue. However, I'm just sad that it doesn't do more than just suggest, I guess. But at the same time, we have to look historically. The St. Louis city has done everything it can to dismantle the quality of public education in the city of St. Louis, increasing the Delmar divide. This Board of Education missed the opportunity to become sponsors. They denied the opportunity to become sponsors of charter schools back, I believe, when they started. They said, no, they won't sponsor them. So, it's left us. They gave up the VIC, Voluntary Interdistrict Coordinating Council, to have integration, and the many of the specialty schools, the magnet school programs, are falling apart because they don't have the funds to fund them anymore. And the smart thing, I thought, it would have been to convert those into charter schools and keep the enrollment up. In respect to the maintenance of the buildings, the district built some of the most beautiful buildings back in the early days of our educational history. We were one of the premier districts across the nation. You know, those were the glory days, the 50s and 60s. And since then, the district has failed its children, sadly. And it's been a pain for the city. And as much as we've tried, you know, they bring in a management company, pay them a lot of money. And really, I don't think anything changed. I worked for 30 years in the district. There are a lot of good people, a lot of good teachers, but there's systemically a problem with the community surrounding it. And, you know, it's hard to put the finger where the blame, point the finger where the blame should be. There's a lot of people involved in this thing, and somebody, you know, we need a master plan. We need to all agree, black, white, whatever, that our children are important enough to fund good education for every child in the city of St. Louis. I'm in support of this, add my name to it. I think that we need to do it. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, please make note of that. The Alderwoman from the 14th requested that her name be added. Alderwoman from the 26th. Alderwoman from the 26th.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry, I was reading the comment. You know, I wasn't going to chime in because I think everybody knows where I stand with St. Louis Public School. As a St. Louis Public School parent, ironically, as my St. Louis Public School children are here today, and we're listening in on a conversation. And one of them wanted me to address something that was said, and out of love, Alderman Vaccaro, I text you first, so you know I'm saying this. I do not agree with the comments you made about our resolutions not making a difference in ending up in a trash can. Anything I say ain't ending up in no trash can. Like Alderwoman Davis said, this is our voice. Like Alderwoman Taya said, this is us speaking against this. So, you know, I just had to chime in for that. It's something you have to be unwavering on, and I am unwavering on my support for the St. Louis Public Schools, not the buildings, not the political banner, not any of that, but the children that, you know, or still go to these schools every day, like my children, who again were like, Mommy, they talking about my school. So when we say in our comments, let's think about who's listening. There are people and parents out there listening. There are children out there listening. And if we don't want to, if you have your outside things that are going on and you don't want to stand with them, that's okay. You do what you want to do. But I'm asking you, as a public school parent, as a supporter of this, to please not get in our way. Have your conversations and do all that. If you're not supporting us, if you don't stand with us, just don't get in our way, because we are ready to fight for St. Louis Public Schools on whatever level we have to fight on whatever level we have to fight on. And I think we just, as leaders in this community, have to be conscious about some of the comments that we make. I know that sometimes just come out, but sometimes they have to be brought up and addressed. So again, Alderman Vaccaro, you know, I text you because I don't want you to think I was singling you out, because you're not the only person that has made a comment alluding to the fact that this might not mean nothing, but I'm telling you, as a parent that's ready to fight for and with other parents, this absolutely means something. It means something when we speak. It means something when we stand up for something, or when we don't stand up for something. So thank you, President and President and my colleagues. And remember, if you don't want to stand with us, just don't get in our way. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman of the 9th, you had your hand up. I don't know if it's still up or not.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to request that my name be added to Resolution 65 as amended as well. Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Alderman of the 22nd, I think you were next, and then Alderwoman of the 4th. Alderman of the 22nd, you were next, and then Alderwoman of the 4th is after you.
You sure, Mr. President? I'll yield to the Alderman from the 4th. I think she might have been before.
I didn't hear. I'm sorry. What was
Alderwoman
said?
of the 4th, we'll take you now.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. It kind of went in and out, so I'm very sorry that I didn't hear what you were saying. Yesterday, I get emotional because I attended St. Louis Public School Systems. And all through from kindergarten up through high school, I am a descendant from the St. Louis Public School Systems. I added my name to this resolution as a start. But what needs to be done is that instead of bringing in new charter schools, we need to fix our public schools. We have the buildings, we have vacant buildings. And my thing is, we have to have a citywide plan that they implement on the south side as well as on the north side. Because why should our kids be bused out of our areas when we've got buildings here that can house the same thing? I can remember when I was getting my certification in education, and I had to go and visit the Fort Zumwalt and Francis Howell School District. And they were building a new school, and all of the parents were applying and transferring, trying to go to the new schools that they were building. And what the superintendent said, whoa, wait a minute. You want to go to this new school because it's offering this particular class or trade. What he did was he put those exact same classes and trades in the schools that were already in existence. And that cut down some of that. We know that our children want to go to the best possible facility there is. But what we need to do is offer that throughout the city. It should be a cookie cutter type effect. What you get on the south side, you ought to be able to get on the north side. And that's what I've been shooting for. You know, you close these schools because people move out because they want something better. Well, what is the better that they want that we can't implement into our schools? It's going to take people coming to the table and voicing what that looks like, coming up with a citywide plan that whatever is happening at the south side schools can be also offered in the north side as well. And I get emotional because, as I said, I am a product of the St. Louis public school system. But we had, and we still have, good city schools. You just have to put the plan together. And I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'm getting out of here. I mean, I'm going to relinquish the floor. When I taught in the school system, Normandy, which Alderwoman Tyus brought up, we had things in place where we looked at other school districts that were making the grade. And what we did was we paired with them. We had workshops with them so that we could see what it was that they were doing. And we implemented those things. So you have to start somewhere. If our children are leaving to go to charter schools or to go to another school district where they feel that they're getting a better education, what we need to do as parents and constituents of the St. Louis public school system is offer those exact same classes or those exact same trade classes that's being offered, that's attracting our students. I'm sorry if it's not coming out right. It's because I get emotional. And
it's coming out right. It's coming out.
Sometimes I fall over myself with what I'm trying to get out, but what can be done in other school districts and on the south side can also be done on the north side. And that's all that I'm asking, is that the north side get a fair shake and a chance to do that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
Mr. Chair
Very
and the
well
board.
said. Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. First of all, please add my name to the resolution. I want to say that I'm as passionate and a big champion for St. Louis Public Schools. I'm a proud product of Northwest High School, class of 1982, right in the 27th Ward. All my children went to St. Louis Public Schools. I remember my son walking to Hempstead and walking to Stowe. I remember meeting the Alderman from the 19th back in the 90s when she was president of the school board, because I went to my first school board meeting, bringing some noise about holding a principal accountable who didn't believe in PTOs. Imagine that. Our family had the great fortune to experience, I think, one of the best principals our kids had, and that was the Alderwoman from the 14th Ward. I became Alderman in 2003, and I remember like it was yesterday debating a resolution about closing St. Louis Public Schools. It was one of the schools to be closed. One of the first schools to be closed was Hempstead School in my ward. And I remember being told that they were going to mothball the schools, they were going to keep them intact so that one day they could be reused and repurposed. None of that ever happened. None of that ever happened. Since I've been Alderman, this year serving 18 years, I started out with 7 schools: Laclede Elementary, Hempstead Elementary, Gunlock Elementary, Ford Branch, Ford, Stowe, and Langston. To this day, the only school that's open receiving children is Laclede, which was once a Gold Star school when President Bush came here. I think it was in 2004 when he was first championing the No Child Left Behind initiative. It truly saddens me what I see in my neighborhood with all these schools being closed. The only bright spot of the 7 schools is Laclede is open and Langston has been repurposed. In 2014, Hempstead suffered a lightning strike and it burned. There was probably over 100 firefighters putting the fire out. So since 2014, it has been an eyesore, an absolute eyesore. I've always been a champion in St. Louis Public Schools. I always will be. But I want to encourage St. Louis Public Schools to be a better partner in our neighborhoods as well. Because if you come over to Hempstead in the 5800 block of Minerva, it looked like it was hit by a military jet or something. It's just horrible. And nothing is being done about it. And I can appreciate the school district holding us accountable with too many incentives being given away. But I also want to hold the school district accountable for what it is doing to our neighborhoods. And I haven't heard any plans about demolishing some of the buildings. They're continuing to deteriorate. People continue to go in and out of them, stealing things. These were $1 million buildings. And the school district was derelict, as far as I'm concerned, in their duties to preserve these buildings. There could have been alarm systems put in these buildings. And yeah, will people go in and rip stuff up before the police come? Probably so. But if you come in my neighborhood and look at what they did to Stowe Middle School, it's a tragedy. And it just seems like it's not a priority for the school district. And so while I am a champion, and I always will be, I want to hold them accountable to the disaster that they have created in my neighborhood as well. All the promises that we were given when schools are closing, we always have great promises, but oftentimes they fall short. I've never been a proponent of charter schools because I do think they suck the money out of our school system, and that has helped get us to the place we are today. In addition to the disinvestment in our neighborhoods, which is a whole nother conversation. Because of the disinvestment in our neighborhoods, people moved out. So we didn't have the population to really support the schools. And that gave credence to why they should be closed. I'm passionate like the alderman from the Fourth Ward when I think about St. Louis Public Schools. And when I think about what it has done for me and what it has done for my children. All of us got a quality education. My grandbaby is in Kennard. So not only have my children attended St. Louis Public School, but my granddaughter is in St. Louis Public Schools. But I also want the St. Louis Public Schools to do right by us as well. You just can't come to us to support you in what you're trying to do. And you're not supporting us in our neighborhoods to make it better. So I want to have some conversation about that with St. Louis Public Schools. Mr. President, with that, I yield back.
All right, thank you, Alderman from the 22nd. And Alderman from 22nd, you did request that your name be added, correct? Yeah. Madam Clerk, please make note of that. And I want to go back, the Alderman from the 11th, her hand has popped up and down, up and down. I don't know if she's losing connection, but I want to make sure that I'm not skipping her because your hand isn't up right now at the time. No, it must be, she may be having connection problems. That was the Alderman from the 11th. Alderman from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. After due consideration, and that consideration includes 4.5 hours last night of community testimony, as well as my impassioned commentary from my fellow alders from the 1st, the 4th, the 18th, the 19th, the 22nd, and last but not least, the mighty 26th. I would like to request that my name be added to Resolution 65 as amended.
All right, thank you, Alderman.
One of the, a very short personal story, and I want to be mindful of time, is that back, it had to be 2018 or 2019, I believe it was, that Cote Brilliant Elementary School was closed. I'm sure everyone will remember that elementary school. a group of community leaders and myself put on a program there at the school because that was kind of devastating to that neighborhood. Like the Alderwoman from the first, a lot of the students that attended that school, their parents and caretakers actually walked them to school to the front door. It was truly a neighborhood school. Several other of the students, their parents dropped them off on the way to work and picked them up on the way home. So it truly was a neighborhood school, and I got a chance to see it up close and personal. We did a program there in conjunction with the principal to encourage the students to stay true to their story, to their studies, even though their schoolhouse may be changing in the future. Plus, we got a chance to hear from some of those little people what changing schools meant to them. And it was really impactful. So based on that, which is admittedly a small sample size, and the testimony and commentaries I've heard, I think that this resolution, it may not fix anything, but at least it's a starting voice on getting a discussion in place for a comprehensive plan for St. Louis public education. Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I yield back.
All right, thank you, Alderman from the 5th. Alderman from the 25th, and then after that, the Alderman from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've already asked to have my name added as a co-sponsor to the resolution. Very much appreciate the healthy discussion that's taking place here down at the Board of Aldermen with respect to the young people in our community and the education systems that support them and their development growth into young citizens of the city. You know, I just want to make sure that we don't make this just about a North and South issue. As someone who represents a diverse community on the South Side, whose population is roughly 30% young people, I do not have a public school in my ward. Both of the public schools in my ward were closed before I became alderman. I've been alderman for 13 years now. They've been closed for at least that long. So all of the young people who live in my ward have to go to school outside of the ward. There's not a single public school on the 25th ward. But I have roughly 30% of my population is underneath the age of 18. You know, that's a travesty. It shouldn't happen. You know, I think there's a lot of factors that play into that, but you know, it's very unfortunate that young people can't stay in their communities and experience that that experience that I had as a young person going to public schools, being able to walk to across the street to my elementary school, or walk down the block about half a mile to my my middle school. But I think that there's so much discussion that needs to be had around this, and I'm appreciative of the sponsor of the resolution bringing this forward. I agree. I believe it was with the alderman or alderwoman of the first ward that this should be sent to Jefferson City just to make people aware of our position currently with respect to a moratorium on schools while we figure out a plan and a strategy to ensure that there is equal access to education in our communities. I just did some quick math here, some fuzzy math, if you will. My ward has roughly, somewhere in the neighborhood of 27-30% school age young people. We talk often about families leaving the city or young people leaving the city, which isn't, far off from the truth, but we still have young families and young people and young kids in our communities. And out of the 28 wards, there's roughly 13 that aren't far off from my ward in terms of the percentages of young people that live in those communities. But namely, like the first ward, the second ward, the third ward, the fourth ward, the fifth ward, the sixth ward, the 19th ward, the 20th ward, the 21st ward, the 22nd ward, the 25th, the 26th, and the 27th. you'll kind of notice there's a bit of a pattern there when I read those off, both in terms of where those wards are located, and then also, what resources are available in those communities as well. So I appreciate the healthy discussion that's taking place here. I feel like we have, at least in Dutchtown, in my neck of the woods, parents who are actively trying to better St. Louis public schools, who are trying to work for the betterment of our community, for our young people. And I want to be able to support them. And I think this resolution is just one step. So thank you.
All right, Alderman from the 23rd.
Yes, I just wanted to respond to the alderman from the 26th. And we like each other, we're friends. And what she's referring to is what I said. And what I said is these resolutions simply end up in the trash. I can tell you from the horse and carriage band to the comments from the alderman of the 22nd ward, when he said there was this sort of a resolution 18 years ago and nothing was done. Something does need to be done. To the alderman of the 24th ward, unless there's been a change and I just haven't noticed, there's a overgrown grass, falling apart building that's a public school building, Wilkinson building, unless something's changed. He's shaking his head, yes, something's changed. So it's a school now? I'll let him answer it later. But for years, that building sat derelict and fallen apart. Any changes have been recent. What I'm saying is, and I said, I'm going to vote for this. I'm just saying that any expectations that these resolutions do anything, they generally don't. In fact, the only one I ever known that did was the one that Alderman and Muhammad, myself did, and that was to have the whole city audited. That's probably the only resolution I ever saw actually have something. If we're going to do something, we should be doing a board bill. We should be doing a board bill holding the schools accountable for their buildings. They're in the city. I mean, there are things that we can do. What I'm saying is a resolution, they're feel good. Most of these are feel good. Put my name on it. You can, in fact, do it now. I'm good with that. I said I'd vote for this. What I'm saying is we could do all the resolutions in the world. We could do a resolution saying no people can leave the city anymore. That we feel people shouldn't leave the city. It's a great place to leave. I live here. But resolutions are no more than just a letter, or in some cases more of a feel-good kind of a thing. We can do things, and we should be looking at maybe board bills holding the schools accountable for these buildings that are falling apart. I mean, there's things that we can do. I'm just saying resolutions don't get us where we need to be. And that's the only statement I said. And when I said they end up in the trash, we've sent them to the governor before. We've done them in bank, where every one of us have been on resolutions that have gone to the governor and to the state. And have we gotten a response? Maybe somebody can answer that I have seen. We've never gotten a response that they said, oh, gee, we got your resolution. And, now we understand. Maybe it looks like the alderwoman from the first may have gotten a response. But generally speaking, if we're going to do something, it should be done in the form of a board bill that has merit. Hold them accountable for the buildings. All the LRA properties, we don't seem to do anything to hold them accountable. The overgrown grass and all the things that happen. Why don't we do a resolution saying, oh, well, they should cut their grass? Or maybe we should do board bills that hold people accountable. That's all I'm getting at. I just feel that sometimes people think that these resolutions have a lot more merit than they have. And unfortunately, they don't. Yes, we can make a statement, and it makes a statement. But maybe we need to do more than make a statement. maybe not only on this, maybe on all these LRA properties that seem to be, fortunately, I don't have that much, in fact, none of that in my neighborhood, but in some neighborhoods, it's destroying things. We could do a resolution telling them to cut their grass, or we could hold them accountable. And that's all I'm getting at. I'm just saying these things, when I say they go in the trash, I can just say that they are ignored for the most part. And again, I will defer to the Alderwoman from the first, because maybe she has gotten answers, but I haven't seen a lot. And again, I said, put my name on this. I said, I'm supporting this. I'm just making the comment that resolutions in and of themselves have no merit. They're just a statement. And if we're going to do something, why don't we start thinking about board bills that hold people accountable? That's just that's all I'm saying. And I'll back off from that. I'm not going to reply back and forth because we'd be here all day debating this. But I just wanted to clarify what I was talking about. If I actually thought these had some merit, other than people would say, oh, well, this resolution passed. People will say that, oh, well, what's being done? I saw that resolution went through. They need to understand it's simply a resolution that, if we're going to do something, let's do it with merit. Let's do it with a board bill. And at that, I will back down here. Thank you, though, for recognizing me.
All right, thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman from the first.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I raised my hand because I have heard back from the governor's office, and it was about, and some of the state reps, when we sent the resolution regarding the police residency. I did hear back, and I also have heard from the governor's office wanting to sit down and talk to me now about some of the positions. We don't have a lot of money that we spend lobbyists to send up to Jefferson City. We do have state reps and state senators, which we can talk to. But, and I've been a person that says legally, of course, resolutions, most of them don't have any legal foothold, but some of them, a couple of them, we do have some legal ramifications. But what I see this resolution is a way to lobby for us. We can't pay for a lobbyist, but the more people that add their names, that's to have a conversation to say, hey, you guys are up there, you're not listening to our state reps, or maybe we got a divided state reps, state senators, maybe half of them are one place and half of them the other one. But this is a way that we can let them know that the elected body that covers the entire city of the St. Louis is concerned about charter schools. We're concerned about our children. And, at this point, I'd be willing to sponsor a resolution asking the folks who think it's so great for charter schools to come down and have a conversation with us, or let us come up to Jefferson City. If you're going to make these decisions about us, let us be part of it. Our great nation was founded on representation and no taxation without representation. But we basically have people pushing charter schools who have nothing to do with the city of St. Louis and have said they do not want it in their community. If they think they should have a right to make those kind of decisions, I just would love to look them in their eyes and look them in their face and say, why do you think you have a right to make those decisions? And we don't have the right to make that decision. Let's put this to a vote. Would you listen to a binding vote from the citizens of St. Louis? And we're not saying get rid of the ones that's there working, but we're saying give us the same alternatives that you give the rest of the state. I am really troubled by this forcing of positions on Kansas City and St. Louis, but not putting it on the rest of the state. The same thing about judges. Everybody but Kansas City and the city in St. Louis area, they can do the plan or they can elect their judges, but they have something in the Constitution that allows them to change it. But in the state Constitution, it does not allow St. Louis or Kansas City to do that. That is paternalistic. It is bordering, if not racist, because it says that if we have big Black populations, that we can't make decisions for ourselves. We absolutely can. We absolutely can make the best decisions for us. These things that you've done, and force these charter schools on us while saying not you, have hurt our community. So if this is the way we can get it before the governor, if this is the way we can get it before some of the state reps, I would be part of a contingency that would drive up there and go knock on the governor's door and say, hey, can you read this? Can you sit and meet with us? I actually was able to get 4,000 vaccinations back in February because I called the governor's constituent hotline and didn't get off until I had 2,000 for Walgreens and 2,000 for CVS and Snook. So I do believe collectively we have a voice, and this resolution is just our way of lobbying. So maybe we need to deliver it another way. Maybe we need to have the president and members of the Board of Aldermen go up there and start walking the halls. But at least we need to let them know in some form or fashion that this is not working for us and that you hiding behind walls and telling us what's good while you say it's not good for you. It's not a fair way to do business. And this resolution is one of the best ways we have right now. But I would say to the alderman from the 23rd, you're making me now think about what other creative ways could we do to ask them to really listen to us and hear us, because I know they had that conversation about charter schools, because I talked to our state senator and she did try to get them to talk about doing it across the state, and they did not want to do it. So if they didn't want to do it, maybe we could have some face-to-face conversations with them about, if you don't want to do it, then why do you think it's good for us? Or maybe we put up a Zoom meeting and invite them to do it. But this resolution doesn't hurt anything. It gets our voice out there. It's our way of lobbying some people. And yes, there are people who have responded to our resolutions over the time. And the last one that I got a response from was from both the governor's office and from some state reps, was about the police residency. So, and I want to say to the alderwoman from the 26th ward that I have never heard you so eloquent and such a great speech about public schools. And that was wonderful what you did. And I agree 100%. And I'm glad to hear that voice amping up about public schools. Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing more to say.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 14th. Alderwoman from the 14th.
Unless anybody objects. Did you hear me?
No, I didn't hear you.
I said I would like to move to make this resolution in bank.
Second.
Hold on for a second. I think there are some older people that would object to that.
Okay, well, that's fine.
So I'd hold that for now. All right.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 21st, you are our last.
I have a point of order, or a point of question of order, I guess.
Please state your point of order.
If the motion was made and seconded.
No, it was, but it's an in-bank motion, which means that all it takes is one person to object. You can't really force their name to be on. So
no, I understand. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Under that, I was just curious.
Yeah, it's an in-bank motion. So Alderman from the 21st.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members of the board. I had a series of questions that I was going to ask the sponsor of this resolution. I will not ask those questions, but I will like to make a comment on this resolution. I do not support it. I believe that we have to ensure that parents have alternatives and options to public schooling, because our public school district is failing. I am a public school parent. My wife is a public school teacher. My mother is a public school teacher. My grandmother was a public school teacher and principal. I support public schools, but I don't want to be callous about the situation. They are failing. And I'm not saying that charter schools are exceeding or they're meeting every expectations, but if we do not give parents the ability to choose where they want to send their kids in their own communities, then we're doing a disservice to our entire neighborhoods. I stopped attending public schools in the 7th grade. The last public school I went to was in the 4th ward, Turner Middle School. My parents then sent me to private schooling up until college. But every family does not have the fortunate capability
of sending their kids to a private school with a $20,000, $30,000 a year tuition. And if we do not have options, if we do not have alternatives, then we're going to continue to see people leave our communities right now. Since 2010, up until this last year when we did the US Census, the ward that I represent now has lost roughly 2,300 people. 2,300 people has moved out of my ward. 17,000 people have moved out of the city of St. Louis. Most of those coming from North City, St. Louis. And it's not because they hate their communities. It's not because they hate their neighborhoods. It's because their school districts are failing and they're not going to send their kids to a failing district. I think that if we're going to talk about a citywide plan, then we have to be transparent. We have to be real, and it has to be inclusive of the people who really control our public school district. And that is the people that we send to Jefferson City. That's our state reps, our state senators. I heard the Alderman from the 1st mention that. That's who we need to be having a conversation with. We need to be talking with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, because right now on their list of failing schools, half of that list are schools in the city of St. Louis. Public schools are on that list that is failing. And I just think that as a parent, and I send my kid to St. Louis public schools, that's where they attend. But I want to be real. I am not happy with the education they are receiving. I am not. Before my son attended St. Louis public schools, he attended the Jennings School District. And I took him out of the Jennings School District and put him in public schools because I truly believe in being part of my community. But I'm going to be real. I see a decline in his academics. For the past 3 years, I've seen a decline. I've seen him struggle to read. I've seen him struggle to do math. And it breaks my heart because I know for a fact this is the information in the curriculum that he knows. But he's placed in an environment where he is not able to learn appropriately nor properly. He's placed in an environment where kids around him do. And we are forcing our kids to be in these schools that's failing. Right now, they shine high school. They have a 9% graduation rate. Their seniors read on an 8th grade level. I represent 2 schools in the 21st Ward, Ashland Elementary School and Yateman Middle School. And I fought like hell to keep Ashland open, which was supposed to close, because I know that we cannot continue to have these buildings closing and these schools closing in our communities. But I don't think that we should be saying, hey, let's put a pause on it. Let's make sure that we open no more charter schools. Because again, our public schools are failing. And if both of them are failing, then we need to have a real conversation on what public education looks like. We need to have an all-around conversation, and we're not doing that. We're saying we're failing, so we want every school around us to close and stop. That's what this resolution does. I cannot support it. And I'm saying that as a parent, as a public school parent. I'm the vice president of my school's PTA. So I believe in public schools. But I don't think this resolution does anything that we needed to do. It's not going to improve test scores. It's not going to improve reading scores. It's not going to make sure that our kids and our students have the best education that they need. This resolution does not do that. Our public schools have been failing for the past 45 years. This didn't happen overnight. And I truly don't believe that the solution is going to happen overnight. I appreciate the sponsor for this resolution. I just stand in opposition because I support school choice and I support parents having the ability to decide where they want to send their kids. If they're choosing public schools, that's absolutely awesome. If they want to choose a private school or a charter school, that's absolutely awesome too. But we owe it to them to give them the option to decide where they want to send their kids to be educated in a school district or private schools that they trust will do the better job. That's all I have, Mr. President. I yield back.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman from the 14th, your hand is up. Do you have anything new for us? Or
I just would like to say that this does not cite, particularly public or private schools or charters. It just says, let's have a plan for all schools, which I think is wise. And that's just in response to the alderman from the 21st. So I think before you say that it's addressing charters, limiting charters, I don't see that. I see that it's just limiting the number of schools that we provide for students and making sure that we work smarter, not harder. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the third.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll make this pretty brief. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Add the Alderman from the third as co-sponsor.
And just to add just an additional comment, we are by I believe trading what it is that we do, problem solvers. People don't call us most of the time to say, Alderman, excellent job on getting the grass cut. They call us to say, Mr. Alderman, the grass has not been cut and things are not going as well as we'd like them to be. They call us because issues in the community are things that they feel that they cannot solve alone, and they put people in positions like ourselves to be able to solve those issues and problems. If everything was going perfect in the city, then most of us wouldn't have calls for service. It probably would cause for a lot of jobs right now that are part of that problem solving system to be removed from something that we'd fund every single year, because you'd have people just sitting around twiddling their thumbs, not doing absolutely anything. The public schools absolutely have issues, and the things that surround the public schools, which is some of our vacant buildings, once again, the high grass and other issues, also contribute to those problems in which parents see as an issue of taking children to and from our public schools. So when we look at the system in general, if these schools did not have problems and issues, if there were not problems and issues in a lot of our wards and there, then we as other people and other people who work for us and individuals that we reach out to, communities, wouldn't have only in a much more forward projected place. And we ourselves and once again other individuals wouldn't be needed per se the way that we are right now, as far as being advocates for our community and some of the issues and problems that exist within our community. So it's important to note that it is our job as older people and other individuals who work under us and with us to solve the problems of the community and issues that the community deems as issues or problems. As far as services are well, of course, it's the mayor's job to deal with services, but to some degree, we also, as older people, especially ones on the north side, and there are a few south side older people, we deal with service pretty often. And the schools are no different. They're service providers to the children in our communities. And, one of the things that is, I believe, extremely important about this resolution as a whole is just us stating that there are issues, particularly with all school systems within the city of St. Louis. And whether you are, once again, a charter or St. Louis public school, there is not enough communication going on back and forth between the Board of Aldermen and the school board before decisions are made that puts us in a comfortable position to say that we do have some idea of where we'll be 5 to 10 years from now, moving forward, and where it is we would like our public school systems in general, our school systems in general within the region to be. So you can look at the statistics. Desi just put them out from charter schools and see how they're reading and what their test scores are. And you can also look and see what's going on with the St. Louis public schools. And on average, they're about the same. Charter schools are not outperforming the St. Louis City public schools at alarming numbers. And it's not that in reverse at the same time. So, it is important for us to figure out what is the root cause of individuals wanting to leave our school systems in general, be it charter or St. Louis public schools. But we don't control charter schools. We don't control the private sector, which is the reason why we go out here and we talk about tax abatement and all these other things and all these other issues that exist and individuals that we need to talk to from certain institutions. We don't control a whole lot of private dollars. We don't control a lot of private sectors within our city. And the ones that we do have a little bit control over, those boards that we as residents and individuals who live in the city can vote on and say, hey, we want these people in these particular positions to represent what it is our common interest is among certain residents and within certain neighborhoods. Yeah, I know this resolution doesn't necessarily have teeth, and it's something we can't bite down in and say, we're giving you objectives and this is something you can do. But it does show that the Board of Aldermen and individuals who are in a political place that people have appointed us to or voted for us to be in to represent the common interest of what the city's progressive movement is going towards is, we're saying that something needs to change. We notice that there is an issue. We notice that there is a problem. That problem has not been addressed adequately. And we can see that from the decline of the many students who are leaving the St. Louis public school systems and those individuals who are trying to build families within the city of St. Louis and feel that they cannot adequately do so. So they have to leave, not only for school reasons and trying to find a better school and institution for their children to grow up in so they can provide better resources in the future for their kids, but also because of the conditions that exist within our neighborhoods at the same time where those schools are placed in. I think this resolution is a starting point for conversation and hopefully continue conversation, but I think it would have served much better of a conduit into conversation had it been St. Louis public schools are extremely important for all of us. We all should be doing everything that we can to once again represent the public interest of the individuals that we represent. Some areas are not looking at having school closing, so they may not have an uproar in their neighborhood. Mine is different. I have plenty of people that are pissed off right now about the amount of closings that are happening in and around the area. I'm so just for our charter advocate for or against necessarily for the educational institutions that should provide education for the children who live in our communities and how important it is for them to be able to do exactly what Alderwoman Ty's talked about, which is walk out the house, have your book bag on your back and walk down the street to your school so you can get to know your neighborhood, your neighbors, your residents. We talk about bringing community back. We talk about what it looks like with community policing. That all happens with that village mentality. And if you don't have a village, then you can't create the village mentality. And these children don't grow up in a community where they can look around and see that Miss Jones been here for 10 years and she's been watching my back as I walk down the street to get to the educational institution that I go to every single day. Those things are extremely important for the viability of a community. And when you remove schools, any schools, and those things are being done on the north side of St. Louis and in primarily Black communities throughout the entire state, you're preventing our ability to be able to grow into a viable community. You remove the schools from the community, and then you have these individuals who want to build families there that are looking at now having to outsource their educational purposes or the education for those individuals that they are trying to build a future for within the communities that they've chosen to live in, and busting them out and doing whatever's necessary to get them to other places so they can have some type of education. But when those things happen and we do have to bust them out and we don't have adequate educational institutions within our communities, that's how we realistically lose in that gentrification fight that we talk about. That's another way that our neighborhoods not only get gentrified. Some people say that it's white and Black. I look at gentrification as more of I would say a monetary thing. The people get pushed out through finances at some point in time. But if you cannot afford to live in a community and pay for private educational institutions, you have to send your kids to where there is public funding and where there are public dollars. And some of the communities that are being served right now, be it the St. Louis public schools or the charter schools, are providing that educational resource for our children within our communities. I'm not happy with what UMSL just did, and then they did it on the basis and the bias that our schools are underperforming, and you did it after looking at COVID numbers. These are predatory practices, and those are things that I firmly believe. You got millions of dollars that have been handed down through the federal government to help balance some of the problems and issues that exist within our school system. The reason that the governor got these dollars, the reason that St. Louis City was awarded these dollars is because of the conditions in our communities. We talk about some of these buildings falling down and the actual decay of them right now. There is money out there right now specifically to help some of these schools, not the ones that's going to cost $1 million to fix back up, but we are not paying on bonds on these buildings. We're not paying any banks to keep these buildings open. You know, most schools right now, if you go out to a more affluent place, they're not having 40 or 50 people in the classrooms. They're not excited about not having an intimate learning setting for their children. They want it to be 10 to 12 people within the classroom so they can have an intimate learning session with the teacher, and that teacher can provide the resources needed for those individuals who may not be able to pick things up as quick as other students. So when you go out here and you go to these more affluent places and they're reducing the amount of class sizes that they're had and opening up more wings where they can have professional settings and professional systems built within these classrooms that within these new wings that they're building so their children can have more adequate teaching and opportunity for certifications in certain things. We need to ask ourselves as a city, as our population dwindles to some degree, and we continue to try to blame the decline of the amount of students that we have on a basis to close schools and a reason on why our educational system is failing. You know, we need to look at the direct opposite of that and see what those individuals are doing who are excelling to some degree and where it is that we'd like to be. And if they're reducing the amount of classes that they have, if they're reducing the amount of students that they have in particular classes and adding more funding to having adequate teachers, or not adequate teachers, teachers who have a certain type of training and understand exactly what it takes to provide the necessary skill sets that school is trying to provide to those particular students about the curriculum that they've chosen to teach those kids, then, you know, we need to be looking at that in particular. Our students aren't failing because of, you know, we don't care. It isn't that we lack what it is the county doesn't lack. We don't have a plan. That's just the truth. There is no real plan on what it is that we are doing and what it is our trajectory place will be in the next 10 or 20 years and what it is that we want to accomplish. We don't know what the accomplished goals are for the school board right now. We don't know what what a population increase looks like. We say we need to increase the population in these schools, but to what? We need 500 extra students, 300 extra students, 1,000. What are we looking at? We're just running around saying things need to change, and they absolutely do. Things need to change. There's no way you can change anything without shaking up the tree a little bit, and that's what this does to some degree. Once again, there's no teeth there, but it most certainly says that we have a united front to some degree, and there's enough individuals who are involved within the Board of Aldermen who understand that injustices have taken place and things need to change, and there are individuals who are making decisions that aren't necessarily reflective of the community, nor the Board of Aldermen, nor individuals who were voted and are appointed here in government who agree with the actions that are taking place. You know, it is things and see how things are happening. How do we close down these schools and not have a plan on what to do with them? We done went through COVID. People have died. People are dying right now. We have children right now who are being forced to do schooling online, and they don't even have adequate access to internet to ensure that it doesn't buffer while the teacher is giving some type of an important information so you can get your homework for the day. You know, these things are why the school systems are failing. You know, these things are important for the Board of Aldermen to address because we are the political leaders who were voted on and put in a position by the community that says we want you to go out there and represent us. Our community showed during the times when these schools were closed and said we don't want it. He's been working very, very hard to those parents. So you got individuals in that community who are also fighting hard with you, that are also fighting hard, just as hard as you are, talking to other residents and making sure these students, these parents are busting their butts to ensure that in these communities that we deem derelict and have all these different issues and problems, they make sure that children get to school on time every day. They make sure that that attendance number is there. And they bring those kids sometimes to school 2 and 3 years back to back so they can go through those grade levels before expanding and going to the 8th grade or whatever it is that they end up going. But we put a lot of trust in the St. Louis public schools. And before our schools start being closed, every single member of this Board of Aldermen and our predecessors and everybody else spent thousands of dollars on tax dollars sending every single year that money to the school board to ensure that whatever it is that we're asking for, there's some type of monetary value provided there. Now, of course, we don't give them all the dollars that they get, but that money is collected throughout the state and giving a DESI, and those dollars go down to where it is that they're needed the most. Our communities have some of the worst problems in the entire Missouri, which is why we got awarded with $500+ million from the federal government. That wasn't for white folks. That wasn't for more affluent communities. That wasn't for individuals who meet or exceed the median income guidelines within the city of St. Louis. That was for individuals who are below that guideline, below that poverty level, are right at the poverty level. These are for our schools. Millions of dollars. So the question we need to be asking realistically is, where is the St. Louis public school systems and the school board on asking for those federal dollars that were mandated for communities just like ours? $50, $60 million, $110 million. I'm sorry, $110 million that the governor got as a discretionary fund for education. Ask how many of those millions were given to us? How many of those millions were requested by the school board? And how many were denied? Those are questions we should be asking to ensure that those individuals who really have the power, where you don't have to go to a board and 15 other people who agree with you, why aren't they sending out the dollars that were designated for areas and to serve areas just like ours? We don't have to come up with a brand new pot of money. That pot has already been created through our detriment. We've already spent years and years of turmoil begging for these resources, and now those resources exist, and we're talking about removing our ability to grab those resources and put them in the communities that need them the most. So I want to say this on record: shame on UMSL. 100% shame on UMSL for removing the funding for one of the schools in my ward, one of the only elementary schools left within the 3rd ward. And then you blame that on test scores during one of the worst times in history for the entire planet. We just went through Corona. Don't even have data on what's going on with us taking this vaccination. We're ready to shut down schools because of low test scores. Most of us have with tests low on anything that we be tested on right now, given the last year and the amount of mental distress that everybody has went through, the amount of problems and issues we now based on our lack of business that we haven't been having based on COVID. You know, of course, we got supported through the federal government. That's appreciated. But what's going to happen if those dollars didn't come? How would it be if those dollars were not designated for areas just like ours? You know, so as we move forward and we talk about the importance of our school systems and us having a choice, the question is what that choice really is. And before we get to a point to where we're choosing and making choices on this or that, has there been an adequate solution is a step forward in where it is that we're trying a bunch of different things. We need more stitches. We need that look like. What does that look like in 2025? What does that look like when we do all this arguing right now and we get to a particular place where we can agree or disagree, but there's no actual end goal? What is the end goal for our St. Louis public school systems? What are we looking at providing in the future by way of jobs, by way of any educational experience to ensure that whatever jobs that we create over the next 5 to 10 years are jobs that the people who live here in the city of St. Louis that have grew up here and come out of our St. Louis public schools or charter schools will be able to grab and have the opportunity to apply for and actually have the certifications needed to get those jobs and be awarded those opportunities that we're trying to create right now. You know, we got billions of dollars coming from the federal government, cybersecurity, all kind of stuff, man. But then they say we ain't got the workforce. Same thing with the Healthy Home Prepare program. Oh, we can't get these black folks nothing, or nobody on the north side or west side because these buildings are falling down. But y'all don't have people. Y'all ain't got no electricians. Y'all ain't got no floor leads. We ain't got no architects. I need to go find some art. That's what this is saying. We have to put money into planning. Where's the plan gonna come from if we don't put no money into it? And us ourselves are running around saying there needs to be a plan. Needs to be a plan. And everybody got a plan. But we don't have an end goal for that plan, nor are we doing what's necessary to ensure those people that we put in positions to plan have the adequate resources needed to make that plan something they can bring to the community. It's not going to waste our time and put 30 or 40 people up on a wall putting stickers on it saying, I think this should happen. I think that should happen. They employ us to do stuff. Things aren't being done. This is something at bare minimum that is being done. Because everybody who's against it, who's opposed to it, there's nothing that you proposed that gives us a positive direction as a collective, with the school board, without the school board, and anybody else that can say that we have spent our time doing something that we all can potentially, I'm sorry, I just got a text message. That we spent our time adequately. This is something that we're willing to get behind, stand underneath, so there's some type of foundation that will folks can stand on our shoulders and stand out. Shoulder came before us, you know. So once again, this is an important resolution, and it seems that's okay for people to be in opposition of not wanting to open up, you know, more schools until we get some sort of a plan. But I also would like to add, it'd probably be dope if we added in there. I don't think that's we shouldn't close any more schools at the same time. All we think where it is that we're going, because and you know, with that,
we're losing you.
I yield. I would say I appreciate the sponsor and I appreciate everyone. I'm sorry. Oh, you're losing me. I'm sorry. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I would just like to thank the Alderman of the 3rd for making it quick.
All right. Alderman from the 18th, would you like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 65 as amended?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Again, thank you for all the men and women. I would like to renew my motion to adopt Resolution 65 as amended.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderman from the 1st and the 4th. There's been a request for roll call by the Alderman from the 24th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley.
I would like to be added as a sponsor. Aye.
Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
Alderman Page.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Aye.
Alderman Coder.
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Gunther.
Aye.
Alderman Balmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Morton.
Aye.
Alderman Stevens.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green.
Aye.
Alderman Odenberg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Peel.
Aye.
Alderman Todd. Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad.
No.
Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Orion.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Thank you. Alderman Todd. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Cone. 24 aye votes and 1 no vote.
By your vote, you stay in the motion of the Alderman from the 18th and adopted Resolution 65 as amended.
That is the extent of second reading resolutions, committee reports, and adoptions.
All right, miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Tuesday, October 26th, legislation will have a meeting at 11 a.m. via webinar. Wednesday, October 27th, Parks and Environmental Matters will have a meeting at 9 a.m. via webinar. Public employees will have a meeting at 2 p.m. via webinar. Thursday, October 28th, 2021, legislation will have a meeting at 11 a.m. via webinar. And Friday, October 29th, full board meeting, 10 a.m. via webinar. That is the extent of the announcements.
Further announcements. Alderman from the first.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, there will be a strict.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, Alderman from the first, please.
Yes,
proceed.
Mr. President, members of the board, there will be a street meeting on Wednesday, October 27th at 10:30 a.m.
All right, any further announcements? Alderman from the 17th.
The domestic violence awareness rally and walk is tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the Grove in the Chroma Plaza. So I hope to see a lot of you there. They were recognized as guests, I think it was last week. So again, tomorrow, 10 o'clock.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 26th, you had a special request. I'm gonna recognize you to bring it up right now if you'd like. Go ahead, Alderwoman.
Yeah, I did have that request. Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I did have that request. But can I make an announcement first and then do that?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you. I wanted to thank, of course, thank my colleague, Alderwoman Peel for announcing the walk, the rally. I hope as many of you can attend tomorrow as possible. You know, I want to put a public thank you out to everyone in every entity, every business, every person that stood in solidarity with the Coalition Against Domestic Violence this week with turning their lights purple. There's too many to name, but I know that some people might have thought it was just about turning lights or purple or the color purple, you know, for me, of course, the color purple, but actually it was much bigger than that. And the proof of that is that while I was out with the coalition looking at lights, we received phone calls from survivors, domestic violence survivors that actually felt heard and felt seen and felt cared about. And we know that domestic violence often happens in the darkness. It often happens in the silence. And so this is like shining a light for them, shining a light that we support them. So I know what some people think is little to them, trust me, it's big to other people. It can free people. So I want to thank everybody for their support for Domestic Violence Month. It's not over again, like Alderwoman Peel said, the walk is tomorrow and it's all month. And I know we're recognizing a lot of things this month, but again, thank you for all the support and standing with the regional coalition against domestic violence and turning STL purple for DD. And the other thing that I was asking our president about, I'm sure a lot of you knew or heard about the passing of one of our daughters in the city of St. Louis, Miss Aaliyah Moore, who is the daughter of Teef Moore, who is a longtime St. Louis City employee through the water department, and his grandmother, Brenda Moore, longtime CEO of Employment Connections. I actually went to school with Teef and have a connection with their family. And so we wanted to ask for a moment of silence. There's a host of things that'll be celebrating her life this weekend, starting with this evening at 6 o'clock at Wold Community Center, 1515 North Kings Highway. There will be a balloon release. There'll be a balloon release. And then there's, of course, her services and everything. But I just think St. Louis, once again, we have lost, unfortunately, one of our children to this senseless violence, and asking for a moment of silence for Aaliyah Moore.
All right, I ask everyone to please join us in a moment of silence. Ms. Moore. Thank you, Alderwoman. Thank you so much for that. Alderwoman from 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to announce a pop-up to be tomorrow at Gray Carter Park from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I wanted to thank all the people that supported us in this pop-up, Alderwoman Sharon Tyus, Lisa Middlebrook, John Muhammad, and Brandon Bosley. And they are surrounding our ward. And so we're just trying to make sure we get as much information out to the community keep your fingers crossed. This is one time I hope the weatherman lies and it doesn't rain. And so we do have a part B plan. If it rains, we'll go into the Northwest High School. So I hope to see everybody that can, because there's a lot happening this weekend. It's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman. It's Alderman from the 18th, then the 21st, and then the 13th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Alderwoman and men. My computer went out, did the resolution, when I was presenting the resolution. I have my phone on now. Did it go, what happened?
It adopted. Your resolution passed, and we're done with debate for it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to make sure.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The Alderman from the 21st.
Hey, thank you, Mr. President. I want to give a big shout out to the Department of Personnel, Slate, in the Parks and Recreation Division. On Wednesday, we hosted our job fair at Wesley House. We had nearly 300 people to come out and apply to work for the city of St. Louis, and it could not have been done without everyone playing a part and working comprehensively with each other. And I believe 37 people were hired on the spot. So I'm excited about that. So I just want to thank the Department of Personnel and Director Richard Franks for working with me to make that a reality and make that happen. Of course, again, along with Slate. Thank you, Mr. President.
Alderman from 21st, I just want to congratulate you. That was one of the most successful job fairs, I've seen and heard of. You got a lot of people employed, a lot of important connections made that shows that you can make a difference when you do those things. So congratulations. Let's give them a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Help stabilize some families and get people new careers started by hosting that fair. So congratulations. All right. Alderman from the 13th.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, members of the board. Wanted to let everyone know tomorrow we will be having a tree planting in Leisure Park in the 13th Ward. Volunteers will be planting over 30 native trees to Missouri that are donated from Forest Relief. So 9 a.m. to noon, I'm buying donuts and coffee, so come if you can. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, Alderwoman from the 1st.
Mr. President, members of the board, I hate for the Alderman from the 18th not to be on as a voting for his own resolution that was so important.
He can send a note he'll send a note to the clerk and it'll be on there.
Okay, because I was going to say I can do motion on prevailing side because that was important. We cannot let him not be on there.
He's on there. He's on there. He sent something to the clerk because his connection's right.
All right, I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all. The Alderman from 26.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. My emotions had me caught up. I wanted to make sure I do this decent in order. I switched her names around, and thank you, my daughter corrected me. Her name is Isis Aaliyah Moore, not Aaliyah Moore. I got her middle name and everything mixed up, but
not a problem. All right, thank you. It's been noted. Alderman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I would just like to thank and wish my wife a happy 31st anniversary on October the 27th. She has stayed with me through thick and thin. So I want to salute her and thank her early. Also, I want to wish my mother, Mildred Griffin, a happy birthday on October the 27th, a proud resident of the 27th Ward. Thank you.
See, that shows how you stayed, married for so long. Didn't forget the birthday for the parent, none of that. So let's give a round of applause to his wife, the saint.
That's right, Saint Patrice.
Saint Patrice. Saint Patrice. Alderwoman Middlebrook. I hope I didn't miss you earlier. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Great, how are you? I just wanted to make a short announcement to remind women
out there that, this month was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This is a disease that affects women as well as men. So please do your monthly exam. Men, if you feel something that shouldn't be there or doesn't feel right, please don't hesitate to go to your doctor. This is disease that we are dealing with as a family. My sister has been diagnosed with treatable breast cancer, and her survival is going to be there because she caught it early. So please just do your exams, men and women, because this is something that affects both men and women. And I just wanted to make that announcement. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And thanks for making a note and underscoring that, and especially underscoring the fact that men as well as women, because I know men think it doesn't affect them, but it does. So if you feel something, you see something unusual, get tested. If not for you, for your family and your loved ones. Alderman from the 17th. Alderwoman from the 17th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I forgot to announce that on Monday, October 25th at 3:30, there's going to be a dedication of the renaming of the clock tower at St. Louis U for Jonathan C. Smith. So I would love if people would be able to come out to SLU to the clock towers on Monday, October 25th at 3:30 p.m.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Alderman from the 10th, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I am proud to say that all are present today.
All right, excellent. You're recognized on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move that we adjourn to October 29th, 2021 at 10:01 a.m.
Second.
Alderman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th, and I think the Alderman from the 4th. Any discussion? Well, there are no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Oh, man, didn't hear any no's, so we're adjourned. See y'all later. Have a good weekend.